Friday, I'm going to do it in my style. Let's drop it. You come back like, no, it's Friday's Power Panel, it's Jimmy Dore,
we're so powerful.
Steve-O, it's Michael Schur. We're joining the TYT community to talk today on a Friday without jank and without all of that, distraction about some fascinating stories. But I think we have to talk first about the first major hurricane to be coming to the United States since Katrina. This is now when they say major, I don't want everybody who lived through Sandy to not think that that felt major. But the way that the National Weather Service talked about it, a hurricane at of level 3 is major, and Sandy, for all of its mayhem, was a level 1 hurricane. So of course,
was it level 1 when it hit land?
It was level 1 when it hit land, but that just shows you the power of these hurricanes. Harvey is headed for Texas right now, and don't worry, because we have a president who is off to Camp David, and when asked if he had any message for the people of Texas, he said, "Good luck." That's what the president said. He said, "Good luck," which, I mean, what else are you going to say? They're about to face a hurricane, but you could say, God, we're thinking about them. We're ready. I mean, he says he's going to.
He could have said, "Heck of a job, Brownie."
He could have said, "Heck of a job, Brownie." Well, so it would have been a heck of a job, Brocky, because Brock Long is the head. He's the administrator of FEMA. He's not the director, but there hasn't been a director per se since 2003. They call him the administrator. This is a serious, serious threat to the people of Texas, to the Gulf Coast. But it's also a story about how we might not be prepared, that this administration does not have the pieces in place, not just at FEMA, but for what happens afterwards. The EPA has cut so much under President Trump already that the EPA, who is responsible for the environmental cleanup when they go in there afterwards, is not necessarily sufficient as it stands right now to do that. And as Texas will tell you, there's a lot to be concerned about. But let's talk about Brock Long for a minute, because if you say, all right, Brock Long is now the administrator of FEMA, good thing, right? Let's look at what Brock Long has on his resume. Here he is. He was the hurricane program manager at FEMA from November 2001 to January 2006. 4 years, 3 months. That's according to Brock Long's LinkedIn. Well, you know what falls in that little span there of hurricane management?
Let me guess. A hurricane named Katrina.
That's exactly right. So you got the guy who oversaw federal emergency management, hurricane program management, during Katrina, who's there now. Now, that's not to say that he's incapable. I think that anybody would have learned lessons from what happened then. But let's go to what we talked about just a moment ago, about the preparedness and what there is to be prepared for. Perhaps most concerning for former government officials with experience dealing with major storms, as Brock Long, is the lack of leadership in key positions at the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, an agency perhaps less associated with hurricanes, but as we said, no less important when it comes to responding to the environmental disasters that they can bring. Further, EPA is the primary responder to petrochemical spills along with the state. Having a regional administrator in place provides crucial leadership. They don't have that there now. And the Texas Gulf Coast is home to nearly 1/3 of the United States refining capacity, making it an area especially prone to a storm-created environmental disaster. High winds or storm surge could breach active refineries or storage tanks, causing a release of chemicals or petrochemicals into the surrounding environment. When Katrina hit in 2005, the storm surge there inundated oil storage tanks, resulting in an estimated 8 million gallons of oil spilled into Louisiana. So, and Alabama and those waterways, when combined with Hurricane Rita, a Category 3 storm that hit the Texas Gulf Coast weeks after Katrina, the two storms caused an estimated 540 individual spills. So we can talk all we want about, oh God, there's never been a presidency like this. There's never been, but when the real stuff hits home, when it matters what's going on in our politics in Washington, and this administration, adept it seems at very little, cannot even put the manpower or woman power in place there to have this to have this readiness for after the storm. This isn't during the storm. This is after the storm. How do we countenance this? What then do we do?
Yeah. So for those who watch the show or who watch the Aggressive Progressives,
what's that?
It's the best show on the network.
Oh, okay.
Jimmy and I often talk about the failings of the Democratic Party and how so many times they are, too close or very similar to the Republican Party. But here is where there's a big difference. The Republicans don't believe in government. They don't believe in science. They don't want the government to have an active role in these kind of areas, whereas the Democrats do, and they are much better prepared for storms and cleanup and preparedness. I would argue that that the damage from these kind of storms, with the global climate change, is a far greater threat to our society and our safety than terrorists. So Trump wasted all this time with all the travel bans for all the different countries, and here we have an administration that is woefully unprepared to deal with natural catastrophes that we know are going to happen. It's a matter of when, but we know they're going to happen over and over again. And the notion that we don't have enough leaders in place to deal with the initial storm itself and the inevitable cleanup afterwards is just appalling. But Scott Pruitt, think about this guy. He is a person who now runs the EPA, who has for the longest time advocated for the dismantling and abolishing of the EPA. So he is in there right now fighting with career EPA administrators and other employees of the EPA. His whole role there is to gut it from the inside out.
Right, and so many people, the people that were supposed to stay there because of the budget cuts and because of what they say is an impossible working environment with the administration, they've resigned and quit. So there are all these empty spaces, empty seats that they're not filling right now because they want to bring the budget of the EPA down. Now the EPA, if you have philosophical differences, if this goes back to the moronic James Inhofe climate change argument, and you want to gut the EPA, that's one thing. That's crazy, but that's not crazy dangerous. Well, it is crazy dangerous. I should correct myself. It is not immediately crazy dangerous because right now you have an empty EPA that's not going to be able to do. Hopefully they'll be able to, but the fear is they're not going to be able to do the cleanup and the proper remediation afterwards.
So, I'm correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you remember, but in 1992,
I try and do that a lot.
There was Hurricane Andrew, or maybe it was 91. Slow response by the George Herbert Walker Bush administration. A lot of people say that's why he lost to Bill Clinton, was because of he lost Florida because
it was 92. It was summer of 92.
Yeah, their slow response to that Hurricane Andrew was what people credited for him losing Florida because of that. And you'd think that the Bushes would learn from that. They didn't. They put a horse trainer in charge of hurricane relief. A heck of a job, Brownie.
Not only that, then a Bush won the governorship of Florida a few years later anyway. So there's a short memory.
Very short memory. So, and Steve makes a good point that Democrats in general are more for government intervention and science and stuff like this, except, of course, we've seen Flint, Michigan still hasn't had clean drinking water since 2014. Barack Obama came in, drank a glass of water and left town. So our government has been failing a lot lately. It's going to continue to fail. And the only thing you can hope for is that so the last time the Republican administration faced Katrina and they failed miserably, we had a Democratic House, Democratic Senate, and Barack Obama became president. Now, how much Katrina had to do with that? I say a lot. So this is again an opportunity.
To that point, Jimmy, after Katrina hit, George Bush's ratings fell below 40% and never recovered. Never recovered. He was in the 30s for the rest of his presidency.
And there was also a Democratic kind of a feeling that the Democrats were right. It was in 2004, John Edwards was out there, you'll remember Senator Edwards, saying that there are two Americas. And what Katrina did was it laid bare the fact that there were two Americas. Whatever happened to John Edwards, that argument endured, and that helped the Democrats win the White House that year. So the kind of the mood was changing because people were paying attention to that. But there was, in the aftermath of that, and JR, how many of these stories have we covered here? Where a hurricane comes, there's lack of preparedness, Then there's the relief that it doesn't hit. But as we sat here and talked about Sandy, I mean, you saw the devastation. You saw the way that even Chris Christie at that time was responding. You're not.
That's the one I was going to bring up, Chris Christie and Sandy, right?
Yeah.
So that also people said gave Obama boosts because look at Chris Christie working with this Democratic president and boosting his numbers and trying to get some kind of nice with him, when in reality it was trying to work with a way to maybe fix what was happening, because obviously no one really expected it to happen in that region. So I was actually wondering, to the point where I was looking up exactly what happened again, because all these, again, I was mentioning this morning, there's hurricane season. So it's not like things should surprise you, it's just probably the devastation or the level of severity of these storms. Katrina even, I think Gustav was before it. That was worse. I think it was Gustav. I can't remember the names of these, but that was actually worse than Katrina. It's just the preparedness and then the what was set to contain these on the ground wasn't set. Yeah. So these things happen. It's just a matter of how much we respond to taking care of them once they do.
Right, and it's early to say, and hopefully it will not have the devastating effect, but already FEMA has said that to be prepared for that. It's too early to say what we've learned and haven't learned, but the mere fact that we don't have every seat filled in the aftermath and the work for the aftermath of this hurricane is unbelievable. To Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, Republican governor, who we rarely say a nice thing about because I rarely don't have one to say, he is saying that everybody who is seeking shelter will get shelter. It's hard to imagine that you have to say this, but he's saying even illegal immigrants will get shelter in Texas. That you have to say it is unbelievable, but he's saying it, I think, is also important. So I guess it remains to be seen what happens. It's a news story that isn't a news story yet, but I think that one of the things that we go into this looking at, I mean, from our vantage point, is what's going to happen afterwards.
Yeah, and again, I just want to emphasize the point that government matters. You can't fight climate change by yourself. You can't fight against hurricanes by yourself.
Good point, yeah.
You need to mobilize, and you need to have government action to direct the tremendous amount of resources that are needed to house hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, to move them to safer areas. I mean, you can't just do that alone. You can't create a charity to do that. You need the arm of the government to do this, and you have to believe in government services. You have to believe in science and the predictive power of science to know when. I mean, we already know, as Jared mentioned, we have a whole season of hurricanes. This happens every single year. I mean, and private industry takes into account for it. So if you go to the Gulf Coast in certain months, it's cheaper because you're going during hurricane season. It's more expensive during high season. Like, we know this is happening. So why are we surprised when there's a big hurricane on its way and oh my God, we're not prepared? It's unacceptable. We need to have better leadership from our government than what we get right now.
And at TYT, of course, we're going to hold their feet to whatever fire we can. Even this aggressive progressive show probably will. And just keep watching, because we're going to be talking about everything that they aren't doing, and of course, citing what did go well. And maybe Brock Long, hopefully Brock Long, is better than Brownie, who we miss so dearly. Okay, moving on now to politics. You'll recall when Donald Trump gave his remarks about Charlottesville and the aftermath of Charlottesville, he was flanked on either side of him, on both sides. Elaine Chao was there, so too was his Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin, and Gary Cohn. I point out that they are Jewish only because it is pertinent to this story. Gary Cohn was taken aback, supposedly, by the president's remarks. He stayed with the administration, as did Steven Mnuchin, but a lot of the business leaders on a couple of the panels left, and a lot of from the ADL to the Simon Wiesenthal Center, of course the Southern Poverty Law Center, people that speak out on behalf of those who are slighted by hate and racism, white supremacy, etc., spoke out. Gary Cohn did not. Steven Mnuchin did not. Well, we learned now today through the reporting of the New York Times that Gary Cohn had drafted a resignation letter saying that he cannot apparently, because the letter itself wasn't released, that he can't countenance staying with this administration. What he said publicly in an interview about his standing with the Financial Times is this. I'm sorry, this was with the New York Times, but it's through the Financial Times. Citizens standing up for equality and freedom can never be equated with white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and the KKK. I believe this administration can and must do better in consistently and unequivocally condemning these groups and do everything we can to heal the deep divisions that exist in our communities. As a Jewish American, I will not allow neo-Nazis ranting, "Jews will not replace us," to cause this Jew to leave his job. And so you get the feeling that he's disgruntled, that he spoke up privately. He said he went to Trump's country club in Bedminster, New Jersey, said to the president in very direct terms that he could not stand the way he presented this, but he didn't go anywhere. And Steven Mnuchin, the most, I would say, prominent Jewish member of this president's cabinet, the Treasury Secretary, had this to say when asked about Gary Cohn.
Gary and I have known each other for 20 years. I can tell you I'm speaking to him every day. His #1 focus is absolutely working on tax reform with me and getting tax reform done. And Gary's committed to be here and couldn't be more excited about that.
Jimmy, he said Gary's committed to be here, couldn't be more excited about it, and he just drafted a resignation letter also.
Well, sounds like Washington, D.C., right? It sounds fantastic. Why stay? What's in it for these people to stay? Is it just that they really want to serve the country, or because they want to get a flag for look how I got some special corporate tax breaks for everybody, or or I got Social Security. Finally, I got the Social Security money invested into the Wall Street. I finally did it. So they'll build a statue to me. Why does he want to stay?
I'm glad you asked, Steve. I mean, Jimmy, because you and Steve had no idea that this was the next thing, that there's an answer built in here. This is why he stayed. Mr. Cohn is known, of course, he worked at Goldman Sachs, to be interested in becoming chairman of the Federal Reserve and still sees that as a possibility. It was not clear whether he told the president he planned to speak to the Financial Times. One person briefed on Mr. Cohn's discussions with the president said Mr. Cohn had made clear to Mr. Trump how upset he was and that he planned to be candid publicly about it if asked. Mr. Cohn's remarks were in stark contrast to a statement from the Treasury Secretary, as we said, Steven Mnuchin, who defended the president. Mr. Mnuchin, as we said, also Jewish.
So there you go.
He wants to be part. Now, if he wants to run the Federal Reserve, doesn't it, considering all these financial gurus who have left this administration, wouldn't it kind of burnish his credentials to leave the administration and then go to the Federal Reserve?
Wouldn't it? Yeah, it would prop him up and make him look more like a serious actor if he did that.
That's what I'm saying.
So.
By people who care about it, who are these business leaders who may have left, don't you think?
I totally agree. Steven Schwarzman left. He runs the Blackstone Group, and he's extremely wealthy and powerful.
Carl Icahn left.
They all left. Yeah. And so I don't understand Gary Cohn. I mean, at what point do you put aside your personal ambitions? At what point do these multi-millionaires and billionaires decide, I have enough money. Yeah. I'm going to stop working with the president who is openly embracing the white supremacist groups. I mean, when is it? I don't understand these people
It's such a layup,
at all.
I think, for these people.
And for Gary Cohn, I was a little bit grossed out by that comment that he is not going to let those comments replace this Jew or whatever he said.
Yeah.
Because he's giving them cover. Because he's Jewish and he openly talks about him being Jewish,
right.
And he's working with Trump, and Mnuchin is working with Trump, and they're supporting him. It gives Trump the ability to say, "I'm not anti-Semitic. Right, I have Jews right here."
But also, in fairness, they're saying that by staying, and I'm devil's advocating here, by staying, they're saying, "All right, we're not going to let the white supremacists win. If all the Jews in the cabinet resign, well, Charlottesville went well for the people who wanted it to go that way." So it's I understand the.
No, I get that.
They shouldn't have taken the job in the first place.
Right. But I mean, I get that it can cut both ways. Yeah. I totally get it. But he is now knowingly and willingly working for an administration that is hostile towards Jewish people. And
embraces Nazis.
Yeah,
I mean, that's more than what it is. Right?
This is crazy.
Yes.
It gives to the I guess the atmosphere that a lot of these politicians have I just read this. I'm gonna get to this in a second. But so Steve,
take your time, Rabbi Jackson.
So Cohen is going through the whole thing of first he sets his letter out how he's gonna resign, then he's gonna stay anyway. So where do you pull the most? It's because we think it's gonna all blow over because this isn't new, is what I've been trying to say a lot. This isn't new in our country. So they go, oh, well, the American people generally don't give a shit about racism, neo-Nazis. They just go, oh, wag their finger at them and then accept them back into normal life because it's just a part of our body.
Right.
No, it shouldn't be, but we're willing to accept it because society has allowed us to. It's allowed politicians to get by supporting neo-Nazis, which it's not like this is, again, brand new. Donald Trump is not the first racist in office, and he's not the only one that's currently in office. So the House, who many people came out, including Paul Ryan, and said Trump screwed up with his comments about the equivocation of all the groups are at fault. They're floating a resolution that says, in part, they strongly condemn racism, intimidation, and violence by all groups, regardless of their political affiliation or political motivation that engaged in such conduct, including the violence by the Klan, neo-Nazis, and others in Charlottesville, Virginia. So after all of this talking about how horrible what Trump just did was, the House Republicans are floating a resolution saying damn near the same thing.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to go, oh, well, they floated a resolution and they said that they condemn it all because they think America, which it is fucking racist. They're reading the tea leaves and like, well, we don't want to abandon our base of racists. So let's keep saying we don't like them, but let's keep saying we do like them. Trump he's not the new magician about this. They've always done this and they're continuing to do this.
Well, I would also say this. Why is it the least bit surprising that Trump would go in this direction? It's not surprising to me at all. And for folks like Gary Cohn and Steve Mnuchin and anyone for that matter who's Jewish, who is now offended by Trump, my point is, were you offended when he said, my black guy in the audience, when he said Mexicans are rapists and murderers?
You can't be judges.
Yeah, I mean, that was outrageous. That's in fact how he launched his whole campaign, by saying Mexicans are rapists and murderers, and some of them are, I guess, nice people. Yeah, they're fine people on all sides. Everyone does it. Mexicans are rapists. I mean, he's been saying this all along. Yeah. So why is now the moment for Gary Cohn and Mnuchin to act like they're shocked and chagrined? They should have known all along that this is going to happen.
And
it's an act. Now it's an act.
Right. And to paraphrase Dennis Green, who you probably, you may know him, but
I know Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Arizona Cardinals. The Bears are who we thought they were.
They are who we thought they were.
Trump is, that's what I was going. Yeah. Trump is who we thought he was. He is who he said he was. And all these people who said yes to serving in his administration, not that that's not a plum job for a lot of these people, and this guy he's an economic advisor, he wants to go on to the Federal Reserve, well, of course, be an economic advisor to a president. But this is exactly what, like you said, it's exactly what we thought.
Yeah, and this is why you have to kind of tackle this issue head on, because people always think, oh, someone's being racist or hateful towards another group that I'm not a part of, so I'm not going to care that much. It's so stupid because they were going after Muslims and Mexicans early on because they're the easiest targets. And then later on, they always work their way up to the Jews. So if you're Jewish, and this is why I think the Anti-Defamation League is established and all that, they know that it's going to get there. You start with Muslims, you start with the Mexicans, you go to the trans, then you go to the Jews, then you go to the gays. Eventually, the haters are going to hate everyone that's different. Yeah. So you should have been shocked and outraged in the very beginning when he was saying this about Mexicans, not wait to the end when he's saying this about the Jews. There's a continuum. The haters are going to go after all the people that are different. They're not going to say, well, we only hate these folks, those people we don't hate.
Can I give you a quick theory of why these people stay, why they joined in the first place? Is because 2 of the last 4 RNC chairmen have apologized for the Southern strategy. So if you're a Republican and you're Jewish or you're a black guy or any other minority, even a woman, you're used.
How about the log cabin Republicans?
That's right. You're used to, isn't that something? The log cabin.
They're unbelievable.
That log cabin Republicans, they're gays for Republicans because they want the tax benefits, which is like a black guy being in the Klan because he owns a white sheet factory. So what my thing is, I think these guys are used to it, right? They're used to ignoring racism inside the Republican Party. They're used to it, which is what you have to do. Steve Mnuchin's been ignoring the Southern strategy his whole life. So is Cohn. They've all been doing it.
Wasn't Cohn a Democrat?
And I don't know.
I think he's a registered Democrat.
But he was a regular blue collar guy. He was a salesman selling. Cohn used to sell aluminum siding and stuff. And it's an amazing story about how he got his job. Anyway, but. So I think that's it. They're used to ignoring it. That's how the gears work. If you're going to be a successful businessman Republican, the gears work. You have to ignore the racism of your party, right?
And his party now, and a lot of Twitter is #Cone must go. They don't want to even support someone who is even a little bit against the president. So they are the ones, the right wing. Twitter is the one, is the group that is really most vocally against Gary Cohn right now.
So Michael Steele, after the both side, many sides comment, and the Michael Steele, former RNC chairman, said that the problem is that even though his approval might be down to 36%, that inside the Republican Party it's still at 80%. So what do you think about that? 80%. So that's what this is, right?
I don't believe that, first of all. I don't believe. I think there has been a real dent in his popularity amongst Republicans. So I don't believe that number. That's Michael Steele spewing one thing he heard once, and certainly I don't think it's recent.
No, I just heard a recent poll that had him at 75% approval from Republicans.
From Republicans, yeah. I mean, that would be consistent with it. I don't believe it. I mean, I think that polling. I'm much more skeptical of polls than I used to be.
I believe it, and 75% of Trump voters are thrilled with him still to this day.
Right.
The other 25% are mixed. Like, he's trying. He didn't do everything I would like for him to do, but overall, I'm okay. He has very, very high standing within his party still.
I don't think. I think it's really falling within his party. I think with his supporters, it is. I don't think it was ever entirely there within his party. So I think, and you're seeing people fall off it. I think that the healthcare thing hurt him a lot with a lot of his voters too.
Don't you think it's weird that he has a higher approval rating than Paul Ryan?
Well, yeah, and how about he has a higher one than Mitch McConnell?
Well, way higher. Mitch McConnell is one of the most.
But I think that's also ties them to Congress. It's easy to have one person when they're the president because it's red or black on the roulette wheel. You pick one or the other. But when you're tied with Congress and Congress is at 8%, you're gonna be related to that number more than the other. That's just what I think. All right, we have a lot to cover. We're gonna take a little break. Go #TYT Live. Get in there, talk about the show. We'll read some tweets, and we will be back with more on TYT.
Complex subject. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
You said I had small hands. They're not smaller. I never heard that one before.
I got a bunch of things to go through. No Republican would have ever voted for Bernie. He would have done worse than Hillary Clinton.
They're so miserable. All right, I'm gonna stop myself before I say things that are offensive.
If I ran for office, and that would be a trippy day, right? I'd break even more rules than Trump. If I had all the money in the world, I would enjoy that. We have a great show for you. Steve's answer is C, Dave's is A, and the correct answer is, of course, B. You guys are the worst. Here's the story, and it's not funny. Steve is over too. It seems just comically unfair and ridiculous. The Democratic Party just sucks right now. It just sucks because it doesn't know what it stands for. We should probably wrap it up.
Welcome back to Young Turks. Michael Schur along with Steve-O and Jimmy Dore. We have a little business to take care of. First, some of your TYT Live tweets. Hashtag, I still say pound. Hashtag TYT Live. Get in there and talk about it. Well, before pound,
do you have a rotary die on your phone?
Tic-tac-toe board. Right. What's the pound? It's a tic-tac-toe board. You have a rotary dial. Some of your postcards and letters. Eric Rooney, there's very good people on both sides of Steve-O.
Where?
I'd have to agree.
What?
I'd have to agree with that.
Both sides
of
very good.
Steve-O, they're very good people.
Both sides.
Well done, Eric. Rita Ann, it's not that Republicans don't believe in science, it's that they believe more in money. Arguably or inarguably true.
Yeah.
They don't love science, but the issue about Harvey is not just the science of hurricanes, but it's the fact that it's the difference, and Jimmy was talking about it earlier, but how Democrats and Barack Obama didn't do enough about Flint, et cetera. But the general principles of liberalism in America have been government taking care of the people, as opposed to Republicans who want no government around at all, and I think that's what it gets to. Rebecca Flaherty writes, yeah, Gary Cohn was outraged, but he likes power so much he decided that he's not that outraged, which, I think that's true. I think there are levels of ways that people think about this. I don't know how much power he has. He's an economic advisor to the president.
Right.
Maybe he has more now that he stood up to him, or maybe he'll be banished and never be allowed into the Oval Office. And finally, Erock 1980 says, what are the odds that Trump will even go to Texas after this hurricane ravages the state? Yeah, can you imagine him walking through Texas with Ted Cruz, the senator, Greg Abbott, who's in a wheelchair, and you could see the president doing one of these again, like he did to another handicapped person on the campaign, a reporter. I mean, the hypocrisy that people have to swallow when they appear with this president after that election, none more than Ted Cruz. But yes, Erock 1980, you're right about that. A couple of other things. Membership, become a member. You get so much more access, podcasts, live streams, the archives. You get to see, what's that show we do on Wednesday nights called? Oh yeah, Old School, right, that's
a pretty good show, but there's a better one on Thursdays, right?
All right, so it's called tytnetwork.com/join. We're on a time crunch, I'm sorry guys. Post-game, there's a new Friday post-game available featuring the millennial dumpster fire. Aggressive, progressive, aggressive, progressive.
You know what's interesting is
a lot of people say it's their favorite show on the network, aggressive, progressive. A lot of members.
Like
many people are saying this.
3 out of the 6 people in the studio right now
many
say
sides.
that it's their favorite show on there.
Many people.
Right. Yes, so
unbelievable amounts of people.
A lot of people say that about What the Puck. The hockey show on TYT Sports.
I didn't know there was a show named What the Puck.
Right, it airs right, but we're the lead-in to aggressive, progressive.
There's a sports show on this network?
There is, yeah.
That is fantastic. Yeah. I've been saying they should do sports.
Well, it's not sports, it's soccer a lot.
It's a lot of soccer and hockey and stuff like that.
You know what? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But back to the hurricane for a second. Part of the reason why the hurricane,
bring us
down, no kidding.
Sorry, guys.
When you said this is the biggest hurricane to hit America, I was going to think since Craig Ferguson. I didn't know what you were going to say after that.
But these hurricanes are gaining in strength because of the warmer air, right? And that's attributable to climate change, and a lot of the folks who don't believe in it, especially the fossil fuel industry, it's like
it's
a
weird.
Not just
the warmer air; it's the warmer seas.
Yeah, everything is warmer. Yeah,
warmer.
And it's kind of a cruel irony, or perhaps justified irony, that the areas that are hit are the areas that are so dependent on fossil fuels. Here in Texas, I'm not saying that they deserve it. I'm just saying that it's interesting how that's playing out.
Right.
And it's like a double whammy because one, they get hit with this awful hurricane, and two, it's going to cause a lot of toxic spills.
Yeah.
That's going to have even more damaging consequences to the environment and to our society.
Yeah, so. That's absolutely true, and that is the most important part. In the literal eye of the hurricane, some of these other things matter a lot acutely, but that's the overriding conversation about this stuff. And let's go back to the man in the White House or wherever he is. He's at Camp David right now. He has had an interesting relationship with the folks over at MSNBC on Morning Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski. He today talked about, he talks regularly about how terrible the show is. He doesn't watch it. Today, immediately after watching it, he responded to it. John Kelly was on. Let's listen to Willie Geist and Mark Halperin talking about John Kelly.
Mark Halperin, was it always too much to expect that General John Kelly, as great American as he is, to be able to control Donald Trump, whatever that means, to control what goes out through his Twitter feed, to keep the reins on him during a big political rally in Phoenix or at a press conference at Trump Tower?
Veterans of past White House laugh at the notion that the stuff that's being instituted would be being instituted many months into an administration. Right. This is basic stuff about flow to the president and about controlling the access to the Oval Office. They can change the system, but Kelly can't control the president watching TV. He can't control the president tweeting. He can't. He's not going to try. And the reality is, fixing the process will help, but the president dominates the situation through his own communication, and I think that it's going to not end well.
Well, you'd think that the president didn't see this because he doesn't watch it. And the proof that he doesn't watch it is on the president's Twitter feed. I mean, let's go back to May 9th, 2016, and I'll take you through. This is May 9th of 2016, about a year and a half ago. Donald Trump, wow, I hear Morning Joe has gone really hostile ever since I said I won't do or watch the show anymore. They misrepresent my positions, exclamation point. Then, again, June 3rd, less than a month later, I don't watch or do Morning Joe anymore. Small audience, low ratings. I hear Mika has gone wild with hate. Joe is Joe. They lost their way. Right?
His tweets are pretty funny.
Days later on June 8th. He doesn't watch it, this guy. Nobody is watching Morning Joe anymore. Gone off the deep end, bad ratings. You won't believe what I am watching now.
I'm gonna guess Morning Joe.
Right. Keep guessing. You're exactly right. More again. I mean, this is in August of last year. August of last year, Morning Joe's weakness is its low ratings. I don't watch anymore, but I heard he went wild against Rudy Giuliani and Second Amendment. Sad and irrelevant. They're irrelevant on August of 2016. Later in August of 2016, their irrelevance still piques his interest. Tried watching low-rated Morning Joe this morning. Unwatchable. Morning Mika is again off the wall. She's been off the wall since months earlier. A neurotic and not very bright mess. Just because of the effect of these. Now he's president June of 2017.
Is Mika off the wall in the Michael Jackson sense of living off the wall?
Well, she's more bad in the Michael Jackson sense. Yeah,
okay. She's a thriller.
She's a PYT. Come on, your turn, James.
I'm out.
You really? There's got to be a man in the mirror.
She's got to beat it.
She's got to beat it. There you go. All right.
I mean, making these jokes is easy as 1, 2, 3.
That's true.
It's ABC.
Yeah. All right. I think we're done.
I think we're all dating ourselves.
I think we're done.
Okay.
We're done. Donald Trump as president. I heard poorly rated Morning Joe speaks badly of me. Don't watch anymore. The guy says he doesn't watch anymore in each one of these. Then how come low IQ crazy Mika along with Psycho Joe? Right? And now, this is a man who doesn't watch. In June of this year, as president again, watched low-rated Morning Joe for the first time in a long time. Fake news, he called me to stop a National Enquirer article. I said no, bad show. And then this morning, this is the man who does not watch Morning Joe, couldn't care less what they say, low-rated, terrible. This morning, after we heard Halperin and Geist talk, General John Kelly is doing a fantastic job as chief of staff. There's tremendous spirit and talent in the White House. Don't believe the fake news. I just love this. I mean, this guy can't tell the truth even about things that he's, criticizing for them not telling the truth.
I can't get over Mark Halperin going without a jacket on a news show. That was kind of crazy, right?
And that shirt was kind of controversial. I mean, it was like a parquet floor on his chest.
That's true.
Yeah.
Somewhere in America, Mark Halperin is sitting in front of his laptop saying, I can't believe Steve-O isn't wearing a jacket.
Everybody can believe that.
Yeah, that's true.
So I forget what we were talking about, but this is funny. I didn't see all those tweets. Wasn't there a tweet that he made about her getting the plastic surgery?
Yeah, I mean,
she's bleeding.
Yeah, no, bleeding was yes, she was bleeding, right? At the White House, maybe.
No, Mar-a-Lago when she went
at Mar-a-Lago, right. Yeah, I didn't include that. This was just about nobody watching.
Yes,
and this is about a president who gets all of his information from cable news. He gets it from Fox News.
The shows.
And he still watches this show. And I suspect he still gets some from Breitbart, even though the Breitbart has left the room. So I just loved the hypocrisy in there. The first thing he did today was talk about how bad Morning Joe was, talking about his chief of staff who has no control over him.
I have to say that Trump's tweets are pretty funny, though. Right? I mean, they're wrong and they're terrible, but they're funny.
I don't think they're funny. I think they're all.
Those tweets against Morning Joe are pretty funny.
I don't think they're funny. Like, I really don't think
they're funny because of how pathetic it reveals.
It's absurd. It's outrageous and ridiculous and funny in that way. You know, it's not like brilliant humor. It's just ridiculous.
We didn't get to the story yesterday, but Valerie Plame, you'll remember Valerie Plame, right? She's a former CIA agent who was outed by the Bush administration.
That's actual treason.
That was treason, and nobody went to jail. Well, Scooter Libby was indicted, but was pardoned at the end of the Bush administration, was he not?
I don't think he got the pardon.
I don't think he got the pardon. I think he was up for it, and there was a lot of political pressure.
So I'm wrong about that, but it was a case and it was an argument, but Dick Cheney escaped any kind of scrutiny for that, of course. In any case, she has started, it's not a GoFundMe, but it's like it's one of the relatives of GoFundMe, to buy Twitter. To raise, the goal was $1 billion so that she could buy Twitter, have enough of a voting interest to close the account of Donald Trump because she thought it was so dangerous to what was happening in America. She was up to like $8,700. And I don't think that's a reflection on people agreeing that they want Trump off of Twitter so much as it's, well, if they're trying to raise $1 billion, my $10 isn't going to get them anywhere. So, but I disagree with you guys about his Twitter. I don't think it's funny. I find it offensive. I think it's childish. I think it makes us look terrible, and it brings out the worst in everybody.
I agree with everything you said. I agree, but it's funny on a pathetic level. But you're right. It's not funny like, oh, Trump's a funny comedy writer. It's funny because he's funny in a pathetic way.
Right.
That's what all those tweets told me. Like, and plus, it is so juvenile. It's almost like South Park is writing those tweets, right? So it's so unpresidential. It's so the opposite. It is like a cartoon character is our president,
right? And it doesn't make Americans feel good.
No,
right? No. And that's the bottom line. I mean, the president's not going to make every American feel good ever, or maybe even most of them. But this guy's veering off in the other direction about that stuff. And maybe that's hokey or something, but I just think it's terrible. So anyway, I hope Valerie Plame gets her $1 billion. Although I think Twitter's valuation is higher than somehow than $1 billion. But here's something that Jimmy will find funny. And there is now word that a unity ticket for the 2020 election is going to be coming across our landscape. John Kasich, you'll remember, the winner of the New Hampshire primary, the last person, really viable candidate to leave the race in 2016, the governor of Ohio, he'd probably say that first. He and John Hickenlooper, who's the governor of Colorado and the former mayor of Denver, there are rumors that the two of them are looking to form a unity ticket, a Republican and a Democrat, to run to unify the parties. The source that broke this story to CNN said this: the idea of a joint ticket has been discussed, but not at an organizational or planning level. What they're trying to show the country is that honorable people can disagree, but you can still problem solve together. It happens in businesses and it happens in families. Why can't it happen in Washington? Jimmy, why can't it happen in Washington?
I'll tell you this. I don't know the answer to why it can't happen in Washington, but this is so backwards. People think that this is what America wants. People in a bubble think that. No normal person wants this. No regular person that I've ever talked to wanted this, to see this happen. This again is, so Hickenlooper, who's in bed with frackers, is a neoliberal. I had much higher hopes for him than he's turning out to be. And no one's saying, you know what we really need is for the Democrats to become more like Republicans, or the Republicans to become, no one is saying this. And so this is just some fake idea that Chris Matthews probably thought up, because I heard him say this before. He told Hillary Clinton that she should pick John Kasich.
Well, they didn't invent it. I mean, there have been, historically, people have talked about getting people from opposite sides to join together. It's never happened. I mean, it hasn't happened since Gore picked Lieberman. But
that turned out well, though.
Right, but listen, I mean, that's a whole interesting political conversation, Gore Lieberman. But they were in the same party. Lieberman was a Democrat. It was before he took an independent run. But the whole idea. See, I agree with you. People don't want that. People involved in politics don't want that. People on the outside of politics hate hearing the fighting. They hate Congress at 8% because all they do is bicker and don't get anything done. And I'm talking, in broad strokes here. But why? I agree with you, though. Like, I'm not crazy about this. I wouldn't want this. But why don't they? Like, I don't understand why, if these people can't stand the fighting so much, have these people join, do a unity campaign and kind of get us over the hump, like a sort of Gerald Ford to get us out of this mess.
Because that's the exact opposite of how politics is supposed to work. You're supposed to have two parties that have different ideas, and that is the problem with our political class. They don't have different ideas. Hickenlooper and Kasich are bought by the same people. That's why this is even an idea. That's why, because it's palatable to their donor class, which is, as we know, runs our government, which is because of the Princeton study has revealed that we don't live in a democracy. We live in an oligarchy, and oligarchs might be okay with this, but the people aren't okay with this. And I don't think that people get upset when people fight in Washington, D.C. I think people get upset when nothing happens in Washington, D.C. People like to see Bernie Sanders fighting. People like to see Trump fighting. People want to see people fighting for something, not pretending we don't have to fight for something.
Right, and then I misspoke a little bit, because what I meant was they don't like that nothing gets done because of the fighting, not that they don't want passion. And you were right for the very beginning of what you said, which was the answer, which is that people, that's not what politics is about. It's about fighting very hard for your side, making compromises, but not making compromises on who leads the country and who leads the party.
Well, yeah, I agree. And I mean, you're totally right. The oligarchs would love this. They would love for the Democrats and Republicans to come together to do all the stuff that they want you to do, all the corporatist stuff. So, slashing corporate taxes, gutting regulation, and allowing them to, merge endlessly and have a monopoly in every single industry. So I think that's actually one of the biggest threats to our democracy, is the ever expanding monopolies. They control everything.
And the oligarchs would love John Kasich. That's the thing.
Yes.
They wouldn't necessarily love John Hickenlooper, but John Kasich's going to be the president, I would imagine, in this.
He is.
And
He's the top of this
right.
ticket, yeah.
So it's not a compromise ticket, right? It's a vice president. I'll make Hickenlooper my vice president. My vice president does nothing, right? It's going to have no effect on anything, right? Joe Biden was a great cheerleader. The Senate loved him. He was a good liaison. He made a big difference dealing with the Congress. Mike Pence hasn't made as much of an impact as people thought. People thought that he would be able to sway the Congress a little more than he has. But John Hickenlooper would do absolutely nothing. So it would be the Kasich presidency. So everybody would love John Kasich, who is an oligarch. So that's the whitest flag that the Democrats could ever throw up, would be to do this.
Well, if they did this, because what the vice president's job is to go to funerals. So if this did happen, John Hickenlooper would go to the funeral of the Democratic Party.
So you know who tried this actually was actually Barack Obama. So this is, I think, where there was a massive disconnect between Obama and a lot of the masses. So when he said he was going to change Washington in a fundamental way, I think people thought he was going to change the way politics is done, in the sense that the lobbyists will be out and politicians will be more accountable to the people. What Barack Obama meant was that he will help the two sides stop the bickering, the fighting, and instead of a red America and a blue America, there will be a purple America, and we'll all kind of get along. That was his vision of changing fundamentally the way Washington works, which is, people don't care about the fighting. As Jimmy said, people want their representatives to fight for what's good for you.
They do, but they do care, Steve, about not getting anything done, because they're always taking
that's right. That's right.
But there's fighting within a party too, and this is my awkward segue into the next story, because I want to get through. There's one at the end that I really want to talk about. The president and Jeff Flake, the junior senator from Arizona, have had a war now for quite a while. Flake is up for re-election in 2018. He's going to be primaried. Kelly Ward, who is running, she's a failed candidate in the past. She's the one also who said John McCain should resign because he has cancer, which I thought was fascinating. This is an ad that Kelly Ward is running now in Arizona.
Please, Mr. President, don't mention any names. And nobody wants me to talk about your other senator, who's weak on borders, weak on crime, so I won't talk about him.
The president doesn't need to name names, because I will. Jeff Flake is weak, and he's failed us in the Senate.
One vote away from victory after 7 years.
One vote from an Arizona senator would have repealed Obamacare. We cannot let that happen again. I'm Dr. Kelly Ward, and I approve this message because Arizona and America deserve better.
running against Jeff Flake, who voted for the health care. So she said one vote from an Arizona senator. John McCain voted against it. She's not running against John McCain now. She ran against him and lost pretty badly in a primary. Also, Donald Trump wants State Treasurer Jeff DeWitt or State GOP Chairman Robert Graham to be that candidate against Flake. Flake is as conservative as you can be. He takes issue with the president on certain personality flaws and certain of the ways that he carries out his business. We'll read this very quickly. This is from Jeff Flake's book that a lot of people are talking about. It's A Conscience of a Conservative. I've read a lot of it, actually, and it's a really good book about politics. I don't agree with Jeff Flake on very much. There is this trust of there's the trust your gut, shoot from the hip approach to political decision making. Then there's the fly off the handle approach, as evidenced by the 2016 presidential campaign. Flying off the handle is a big hit right now, at least in terms of its entertainment value and ratings. In this book, I mean to establish that as a governing philosophy, the instability of flying off the handle is a disaster for the United States and is profoundly unconservative. The same goes for our state-of-the-art presidential bellicosity, which seems to be quite popular in the quote-unquote conservative circles these days. And that is the antithesis of conservatism too. And it is also very often the antithesis of truth. So Donald Trump wasn't naming names in Phoenix. Jeff Flake didn't name names here, and you can see why Donald Trump, has an itch right now to get rid of Jeff Flake, because you wrong the president, he's going to come after you in that way. And he did the same thing with Bob Corker today, the senator from Tennessee, who's a senior senator, also up in 2018. Bob Corker last week, and let's listen to Bob Corker here talk about Donald Trump, and we'll see why he got upset.
The president has not yet been able to demonstrate the stability nor some of the competence that he needs to demonstrate in order to be successful.
And this morning, after taking in Morning Joe, Donald Trump decided that he was going to tweet about Bob Corker. Strange statement by Bob Corker, considering that he has constantly asked me whether or not he should run again in 2018. Tennessee, not happy. So he's at odds with the president. With the Senate. It's going to be very difficult when they come back to do I don't want to say tax reform, it's tax cuts.
Tax cuts.
When he comes back, this is how this president operates. This is why Jeff Flake is pissed. TYT, we'll be back in a minute. We're talking about food. That's what we're talking about during the break. Italian food.
Good steaks.
And steaks and bone marrow, obviously. Welcome back to Young Turks. Michael Schur, Jimmy Dore, and Steve-O. We're going to be quick here, but this is a story that you guys have to hear because it really explains a lot about what happened in America a couple of weeks ago in Charlottesville. A South Carolina judge Thursday, that's yesterday, dismissed a North Carolina man's petition to return the Confederate flag and pictures of Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee to the York County Courthouse. Which is in South Carolina. He's a North Carolina man. So that was so the judge threw the case out. He was trying to file it under South Carolina Heritage Act. The judge said his lawsuit has no standing because he lives in North Carolina, and that it has no merit because there's been no court case regarding the Heritage Act and whether it applies to buildings. So that was that, right? Here's a guy who wanted to see it go up, and he was very upset that it was coming down. And here is the eminent Russell Walker. He's not a racist, he says.
I don't believe it's a symbol of racism. I don't believe it's a symbol of slavery. That's my personal view, but how they feel is their business. But it would be ludicrous for me to tell you how they feel. Hey, I get down the street, I see Martin Luther King. I shouldn't have said it. Martin Luther King. I mean, should I rip the signs down or insist that they take Martin Luther King Street down and all the rest of that stuff? That's a public thing. I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's just the way it is.
He doesn't agree that Martin Luther
King, was that what he said?
That's what he said.
That's
he said,
unbelievable.
Now, I don't know if I believe it was an accident or if he's just so fucking dumb that he actually let it slip.
No, I bet he says it all the time in private or with his buddies, and it just slipped out.
Yeah,
that's what I think it is.
And now he has to go back to his home state of North Carolina because his case in South Carolina didn't work out. What are we
When
up
he says
against?
I don't agree with Martin Luther King Boulevard, like what don't you agree with?
He doesn't necessarily agree with it. Maybe that it just cuts through town and creates a lot of traffic. That's what I'm guessing. I'm guessing it's just too damn noisy on Martin Luther King Boulevard for him. No, he disagrees that they named it for Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And that's naming it. That's not putting a statue up. Right. Right?
It's
an American hero.
Yeah, so
not someone who tried to make America better, not someone who tried to divide America and
not someone who actually attacked and killed America.
Right.
It's funny that he says that it's not that Robert E. Lee's a symbol of racism or any of that stuff. It's just, of course, that's why he likes it. Of course, why else would you like it?
Right.
The guy's a loser. He's a losing general. He lost. Yeah. They were seditious to the United States of America, and so what else is there to like about the guy unless that he represents racism?
Right.
That's the only thing that's you could.
And he had this eureka moment in his house in North Carolina one day. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go down South Carolina. I'm going to tell them they can't put those statues up.
But he sees it as a big win, and I'll tell you why. Because he got to say "coon" on TV. Right. And so now he will forever be getting drinks bought for him wherever that racist bar is that he goes to.
They were already buying him drinks for this, I'm sure. Jimmy, Steve, thank you very much. Second hour, TYT Live, there were some tweets. I'll read one. Chris Bradshaw, working in the White House sounds like living in the Twilight episode with that evil, omnipotent 6-year-old. Yeah, I guess that's true. There were a bunch of others saying that they don't like what the unity ticket means because two parties are going to mean that it's bad for progressives. Neither will be progressive. That's probably accurate. I don't think it's going to happen. Second hour today, Ambria, Grace, and Brett. So you got 2 out of 3 are great. And have a great weekend. We'll be back with more TYT.
Welcome back to the Friday Show.
Friday Show.
Wow, no one cares.
I care.
Really?
I really care that it's the Friday Show. It's why I'm feeling loose and excited to be here.
Do you know what just happened? I was trying to say something like, I don't give a and it came out just as no one cares.
Yeah, which technically is right.
Yeah, it's all those words.
I'm glad it came out the way it should have.
It's just a totally different song.
That would have been a lot.
Yeah, instead of I don't give a blanky blank, if it's just like no one cares, right? It's just a different song.
Y'all could have told me to dress down.
Yeah, no, that's my fault.
You could have sent me a text.
This is just my motif, I guess.
Was hard.
This is my aesthetic. It's the lumberjack who just got home from a long day is like what I am.
So. Like fantastic earrings.
Yeah,
so, all right, I'm into it.
I'm sorry about the shirt. At the next break, I might change because I meant to, really.
You're so high maintenance, man. I can't.
He really is.
What's happening? Am I pulling? We're noticing I'm pulling this too much. I don't know. You're going like this. I don't know. I'm getting these weird signals from off. Oh, drop it. So that was the signal I was getting. Was Jacora going? We dropped it. Ambria, Grace, Brett, we're all here. We're all together. We're going to get into talking about actual news. And apologies to everyone for what's happening. Unregistered Chicano tweets to hashtag TYT Live. Wow, more puns on today's show than when Cenk is there. So I don't know.
Hard to do.
And then I don't want a Democrat running with a Republican just so they can both screw me over. I want progressive policies, says Brian Newton. Member shout outs, I don't know if those were done, but Joseph Willis and Sarah Potter. Good for you guys, and thanks. Everyone subscribe to TYT so you can get additional content whenever you want it. You can see the post game, aggressive, progressive, everything like that. Grace is here to show us what's what in the news in the social hour.
We have a whole lot ahead. We're going to be talking about some cheerleading, some dog poop, Taylor Swift, dating apps, a little bit for everybody. So let's just get right into it. Denver police have Denver police have launched an investigation after a video of a cheerleading practice has gone viral. So we're going to show you this video right now, but it is upsetting for some people, so viewer discretion is advised. Let's take a look.
No. You're gonna make it worse. Stop me.
Somebody had attacked my little girl and people sat around and let it happen and nobody stopped them. I first brought it up to the coach and he said, oh, she'll be all right. It's just a little war wound.
You're just gonna make it worse. Stop me.
Is from East High School, again in Denver. Denver Public Schools announced 5 employees had been placed on leave. East High School principal Andy Mettelsberg, assistant principal Lisa Porter, cheer coach Ozell Williams, assistant cheer coach Mariah Cladis, and school system deputy general counsel Michael Hickam. Now, when asked about this by the Denver Post, the cheer coach says, quote, you can definitely say that what was in the video could be seen in a different light. I would love to tell my story, but I can't say anything else at this time. The video was shot at a June 6th practice, so this was actually a while back, said Eric and Kristen Wakefield, the parents of Allie Wakefield, 13, the student shown in the video. Eric Wakefield said that they liked Williams' disciplined coaching style at first, but the intense practices, sometimes 7 days a week, were tough for their daughter. Allie's parents said they met with Mettelsberg, the school principal, Williams, and his 2 assistants early this summer to talk about how to proceed. Mettelsberg said the athletic department would assist with injury rehabilitation. The parents, that is according to the parents. Then summer break happened, and they came back from summer break, and it appeared as though there weren't any changes, there wasn't any new pursuit to find out what was going on at these practices to make sure that there was some oversight happening. So renewed complaints about the coach were brought to the East High administrators with no resolution. The Wakefield said a few days ago, Kirsten Wakefield shared the video showing Allie crying to a local media outlet. That's when the school system took action. Now, for their part, the USA Cheer National Safety Council and the American Association of Cheerleading Coaches and Administrators has said they do not condone the coach's action and reject them to the fullest extent. So it sort of seems like this was a case of something that they wanted to handle internally. They didn't want this to go viral. And then the parents got so frustrated when they brought their complaints, they showed this video, they took it to the principal, and then nothing happened. So then finally, they got burned through social media. They got burned through this mom being like, whoa, if you guys aren't gonna do something, let's put it into the public discourse and see how they like it. And obviously people are really upset about this video.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, why are you fine with it?
I'm fine with them using that as a way to get people to actually take notice.
Oh, so you're not fine with what's happening in the video?
No, I think here's the problem is when you are on a team or you're in a closed environment, maybe since everyone else is doing it, it doesn't seem like that big an issue at the time, and other people are able to do the splits easier or whatever. Right. But sometimes it takes other folks looking at what's going on to give fresh eyes on it. So everyone else says, that girl looks like she's in way too much pain. And while I'm sure when you're inside cheerleading, it seems super important that you be able to do the splits. But a decent person looking at it could give you a little more perspective to say, I think we should go a little easier on her.
Right, well, how do you feel about the mom taking it upon herself to share this video publicly? Do you think that she should have still kept trying to handle it internally, or do you think that she just reached her point and she's like, nope, I wanna make sure these kids are okay, this isn't okay, now you guys decide?
Yeah, I see no issue with the exposure. Well, it's high school cheerleading, it's not that
high school, she's
right?
13.
You take that back.
It's not.
You take that back.
In the grand scheme of cheerleading, right? If we think about it, it's not that serious. And even if these techniques are important, like doing the splits, flexibility is important in the context of being able to cheer, but there are appropriate ways of increasing flexibility, and this doesn't appear to be one of them. Arguably, I'm not an expert on this, but if it is, she still has the ability to say, this isn't to opt out. This isn't how I want to go about achieving this goal.
And experts have been quoted as saying this is not the way to increase flexibility.
No, particularly because it seems as though it wasn't just the coach, it's other folks on the team who are all kind of participating in this mob style.
Yeah. And she did sustain injuries. She injured muscles and ligaments in her groin area as well as her hamstring, according to her parents. And physical therapy was ordered twice a week. So, and one thing that we know is if you've stretched at all, you're pretty familiar that the way that you get deeper into that stretch is not from being tense as though like people are around you. It kind of reminded me of like something out of like Rosemary's Baby.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Just weird.
Which is a big kind of a weird imagery, but I'm a horror movie fan, that's where my brain goes. And I know that when I was doing yoga, hilarious.
Wow.
The way that
Where's that video?
Let's never find it.
I have it. I'm gonna release
the way that I got
media.
deeper, they're gonna find it.
New channel, new show on TYT. It's Grace doing yoga.
Please
enjoy it now. Subscribe.
But the way that you increase that is through like calming yourself, you know, focusing on your breathing. That's how you get deeper into the stretch. It just seems like they weren't really thinking, and I agree with your point. I think they sort of just got caught up in this. We've got to make sure everyone's limber. I believe the quote is limber them up within these first weeks of cheerleading. Make sure everyone's nice and limber, and that's just not the way that you do it.
I did competitive cheer.
Yes,
unfortunately,
really?
I will admit that.
You should have opened with that.
Well, I was
an
trying.
expert on the panel.
I was trying not to. And I remember all of this, like, you're really into the culture of cheerleading. Flexibility is important, and there's pressure to have everybody be on the same page in terms of flexibility because you can do more in terms of stunting and different tricks, right? But everyone's at varying levels of flexibility, and if you're an expert, right, a professional, and apparently this guy is pretty popular, then there are ways to achieve that safely. I remember the test for me was like doing a back handspring, and I couldn't do it. I did not feel comfortable. And my coach was like, look, everybody who doesn't do a back handspring in the next like 8 seconds won't be competing. And I didn't do it, right? So it's, I just-
Did you compete?
I did not.
I get it. That's fine. I've been cut by many teams.
Allow the student the choice to say, I don't want to do this. And she said, I don't want to do this. And they continue to apply force. That is what I have a problem with.
So when I was in high school, I was on the basketball team, junior varsity. It was pretty good.
Hey now.
2 years in junior varsity. Good morning. And what we did is this conditioning thing where you do gassers, and the coaches, when we weren't doing very well or when it was going to be a particularly daunting practice, they weren't assuring we'd throw up, but they would pull the trash cans out and put them by the edge of the field just so you know you're in for it today. That's one of those things where if we stopped doing it,
it would be okay if we like kicked out before it was time to throw up, but I definitely like threw up at practice a couple times.
Oh yeah.
Was I traumatized?
Well, I'm not sure, but I will say I've thrown up at practices before as well. Everything bad that I tore my ACL in a practice. Like I've done things have happened to me through basketball.
Grace is a collegiate basketball player. I think you guys should know.
Barely a year.
So much better than
what I would say is that the first couple weeks of practice, especially for a high school sport where everyone is encouraged to go out, you're not recruited like at the collegiate level. Well, actually, I don't know. Some high schools are very serious. Those are the most intense practices because, in a sense, you do want to weed out the players that want it, that are serious. Sure. But there is still a line when it comes to that. And I think what is frustrating here is that line totally got blurred. And what's also worth noting is that even though they the employees were dismissed, they were saying that is just that's standard policy, and it's they did not prejudge them, so they still come back to their positions. That's worth noting here. But I hope that this is sort of a cold drink of water for them to take a beat and let's examine how our policies are moving forward, so that we have a fun and also challenging cheer squad.
Yeah, and you can still have discipline without doing this to someone.
Yeah. Yes.
Like having practice 5 days a week is discipline enough, in my opinion, to keep to give you the incentive to grow as a person without holding you down as you scream bloody murder.
Yes. All right. So agreed. Nailed it. On to the next story. I never know how to segue this. So I'm just like, we killed it. Good job, everyone. Solved.
I like it.
So far-right activists who will be coming to San Francisco to hold a rally this Saturday will have a smelly surprise when they meet from some peace activists. They are going to be greeted with dog excrement, dog feces, dog shit. So hundreds of San Franciscans plan to prepare Crissy Field, the picturesque beach in the shadow of the Golden Gate Bridge, where right-wing protest group Patriot Prayer will gather with a generous carpet of excrement. The idea came from Tuffy Tuffington, who said that he had the epiphany while he was just walking his dogs that wouldn't it be funny if you had all these right-wing activists just stomping around in some poop, and he thought that it was a little bit of what he said civil disobedience, and they didn't have to engage with these people face to face, because obviously, as we've seen all over the country, it just can escalate and turn violent, and he didn't want to do that. So Tuffington, a 45-year-old artist and designer, created a Facebook event page based on the concept, and the dog owners of San Francisco responded in droves. Many have declared their intention to stockpile their shit piles for days in advance, then deliver them in bags for the site. The group is also planning to reconvene on Sunday to clean up the mess and hug each other. That's not the only thing that will be meeting these activists. They're going to be met with flower power, drag queens, a contingent of clowns, kayakers, cars, and kids. It sounds like a party if you didn't know any better. So this is what Cleve Jones has said, an LGBTQ rights activist. He said about this, you have a significant number of people who would like to go and punch Nazis, and then you have people who think they should be entirely ignored. In between, you have all sorts of creative and crazy ideas. I kind of like that. So my question for you guys is littering this field with dog poop, is that just a creative, benevolent, crazy idea, just like the clowns and the kayakers, or is this actually, not peaceful? Like, hey, it really sucks when you step in dog poop. This isn't peaceful. I don't like this. Where do you stand, guys?
Ambria?
Not in the dog shit.
You don't stand there.
I couldn't.
There's one thing to remember.
Sorry.
Don't stand.
Don't stand. Writing it down. Writing that down. Don't.
Just in terms of strategy, if you're gonna be shady, be privately shady. Like, I don't like that we know now that this is gonna happen. So now they can kind of preempt this and maneuver around the shit as opposed to walking right into it.
Meet them in advance. I mean, if I were going to this rally, if I was going to this meeting and I would now see this, it's in the Guardian, it's again not secret, I would meet them and be like, don't you get your dog shit away from here. Like I would, and then maybe it would turn violent. Maybe they'd have a dog fighting or something. I don't know.
This is
bad.
This is a really fun idea. When it's the person, Tuffy Tuffington, already has had fun ideas, like to have the name Tuffy Tuffington, is walking their dog, and the dog takes a poop, and they're like, we should do that to Nazis. Like, that's fun. And the idea when you get the word out about it that it'll, and then it's in the Guardian, and I read the title "Turd Reich," that makes it really funny for me.
Right.
The thing is, you also will have a period of your life dedicated to like putting dog shit in a pile, and that's where it's too far for me. That's where I'm like, this is a clever, creative idea, but I'm also like picking up dog poop to save it.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel crazy.
Yeah, and then going back to clean it up, there's so much labor involved in this protest, this anti-protest, they're gonna go back, clean it up. I don't know. It just feels.
Well, what they could do, maybe we can offer them some logistical advice. What they could do is just bring now all their dog walks up until Saturday when the activists are gathering will be at the Chrissy Field. Just bring all your dogs there, so then they poop and they pee right there, and then you come back on Sunday and you pick it all up. But it's going to be caked into the ground, and I know from experience it's not fun to pick up dog poop that's caked somewhere.
Yeah,
it's not fun.
The execution of the idea, I think, is what's, and what does it do about white supremacy? Like at the end of the day,
it makes it smell.
What do drag queens or like the flower crowns that they're going to be handing out? What does any of it do really? It's more sort of symbolic, and there are different ways of approaching that. And I think that the symbolism and what you can bring to these people that you just so vehemently, absolutely disagree with. It just makes you feel better, really. It's not about what you're not gonna be changing any hearts there.
Sure.
This is a brilliant idea, and the more I think about it, the more I think they should do it. It's way better than punching Nazis, which I don't think you should do. People come online and go, you can punch them because they're Nazis. Like, no, once you punch them, then you kind of are a jerk too. They were Nazis, and you were just someone who doesn't punch anyone, and now they're Nazis, and you're someone who just punches people, even if they're Nazis. I like the idea of a lot of folks in San Francisco who, if you've ever been to like a public event in San Francisco, it's super awesome and super fun, and randomly people can be naked. It's fantastic. Those people being out there and around and having a better time than the angry Nazis.
Right.
That's what I like about San Francisco festivals, is everyone's just having the best time ever, where if you try to be mean, you just feel ridiculous.
I think that's sort of what the spirit of this is. And that's why I think the dog shit thing is a little strange, because they were saying they want to use their particular strengths. So they have humor, seaworthiness, the ability to monopolize parking spaces, and cuteness, respectively, to thumb their noses at hate. And what sort of is an outlier to that is that then these people are just tramping around in poop, and they're in a bad mood. And I think that it's better to, the Selena Gomez fan in me is just like, kill them with kindness. Just be as kind as you can. And I don't think that stepping in dog poop.
Learning so many things about you today, Grace.
Grace doesn't like Selena Gomez very much.
Okay, good.
Just kidding. She's in love with Selena Gomez.
Oh, wait, sorry.
I was so sad that you had to do preparation for today, because afterwards, actually just go reward yourself, because her like Instagram story today,
is gold.
I'll just leave it at that. It's amazing. She's like getting her makeup done.
Well, we'll just move on to the next story so I can get on my phone as quickly as possible. And this next one is going to be talking about dating apps. Okay. So many Silicon Valley companies have been cracking down on extremism, white nationalists, white supremacy from being on their platforms, from being on their applications. And we've seen this from Facebook, from Twitter, PayPal, Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, and now OkCupid is tossing their name into this company. The shift towards tighter regulation became especially clear after the August 12th rally in Charlottesville led to violence. Days later, the dating site OkCupid announced on Twitter that it had banned a newly famous white nationalist. That white nationalist is Christopher Cantwell. You may remember him from that Vice News documentary about what happened in Charlottesville. It went viral, it was all over Facebook, and everyone got to know his name and face, and he got called out. And OkCupid was very quick to respond on Twitter. They said, "We were alerted that white supremacist Chris Cantwell was on OkCupid. Within 10 minutes, we banned him for life. There is no room for hate in a place where you're looking for love." Furthermore, chief executive at OkCupid said, "We do not tolerate anyone who promotes racism or hatred. It's that simple. At OkCupid, our mission is to connect people based on substance. participants based on their shared sensibility that the privilege of being in our community does not extend to Nazis and supremacists. Bumble, another dating application, also said that it will be working with the Anti-Defamation League to ban all forms of hatred on their platform. So we're seeing this carry over. I think a lot of this comes down to what the chief executive at PayPal said. Companies and CEOs have an obligation, maybe even a moral obligation, to stand up for values. But some people are saying, guys, that this is a slippery slope. Let me tell you about that. Experts warned that once online services start banning users because of their views, they risk tumbling down a slippery slope. OkCupid may have had several good reasons to ban Mr. Cantwell, said Jimmy Lateau, an associate professor in the Department of Journalism and Communication at Lehigh University. But once they start policing people's beliefs online, it's not unreasonable to ask why they allow people who have other beliefs or behaviors that are repugnant. Now, to that point, the OkCupid CEO said pretty bluntly, we do not believe that there is a slippery slope between banning white supremacists on OkCupid and policing other beliefs. So to that degree, two different schools of thoughts here. Where do you guys land on this?
I'm fine with them not being on OkCupid. I think it saves these white supremacists a lot of time and money.
Money? OkCupid's free.
Time and money, because okay, here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you are a Nazi white supremacist, you're definitely not leading with that on your first message once you've been swiped right on.
You think?
Maybe it's
You're
on
not
your
like-
profile, like
they're not-
hates, equality, progress.
So if you are, I guess that's fine. But then you'd be on like date 3 with someone, and then you'd be like, Jews suck. And then you just be like, oh God, I let it out. And then they would be like, I'm sorry, I can't date a self-avowed Nazi white supremacist. This is over. Meanwhile, you've gone to coffee, drinks, a nice dinner, maybe a movie. That's like $700 you spent.
Right. So this is a
primarily.
fictional.
Mostly at the movies.
This is a fictional scenario in your head, though.
But I feel like it's the kind of thing that would happen. A lot of people go on, I mean, people have done this. The reason that this came to their attention in one instance is that someone was on a dating app and was like, oh my God, that's the guy from, I think, the Vice video.
Yeah.
And said, this is a guy who elsewhere on the internet, as well as on probably like if it's certain ones, I think they source your like Facebook photo. So on this guy's Facebook page from which these photos are sourced, he's also spreading hate speech. Maybe we should do something about this. So he is, I think it would eventually get to the point where this guy is outed as a white supremacist and it's okay. Hate speech is on the other side of that line.
Yeah, especially for a private company. They are allowed to draw that line. Where do you land on this?
I mean, I'm all for restricting the privileges of white supremacists.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it's a clear statement. I mean, the argument about the slippery slope about beliefs, I think, is a logical one. But when you're actively engaged in promoting hate speech, like you are doing illegal shit. So yeah, you don't get dating privileges.
Yeah, the Nazi stuff
on this site.
I feel like once we like deplorable behavior, like once we fought a world war against something, that category can be like not allowed to use dating apps. So Nazis, I feel like I've said this before on the show, I don't think the jury's out on Nazis. We can say that like that's hate speech.
Yeah.
So we did get them off.
And also, I mean, just to both y'all's point, it's if you don't like this or you're upset with your treatment on OkCupid not being allowed, then you are allowed to. It's a free market. You can make your own Nazi dating app, and that way you don't have to. And that way, Brett, you like you were saying, you save some money because you know if you're on there, you're looking for other assholes.
OkCupid is the bottom of the barrel. If you're not allowed on OkCupid, no one's gonna date you.
My brother's on OkCupid.
I don't know anything about OkCupid. Someone said OkCupid, I've given up. Like that was their joke. Another question I have about this is, well then where are you gonna find the hot Nazis?
Who cares?
Yeah.
No, but what if you're into Nazis? What if you're like evil boys?
Then
where are you gonna find them if they're not on
Go where
Bumble?
progress is happening, and they will be there trying to stop it. That's where you go, and that's where you will find them.
I don't know, I think there's money to be made here because I am a Jew. And I will try to make money off of these Nazis.
That would be clever. Make an amazing dating app and then it's run by you, a Jewish man, and then just see that the conflict that it would bring them.
Can I run some names by you?
Oh God.
Of potential dating apps.
So long as like prison time is on the end of this app, where it's just really like you're really just like a mole, and like we're gonna report them to the authorities, like and they like the Department of Homeland Security is somehow involved, and then they all that would be nice.
I'll write that down as a
It seems
potential.
like they need some help with
I believe
identifying
he prepared some names.
Thank you, Grace.
Hear
Thank
them
you.
out.
Thank you, Grace. Instead of J date, J hate.
Sure. Anything else?
Not a big response. Instead of Bumble, Dumble.
I was gonna say fumble. Because
Fumble.
Really...
That was part of this. You get half the company.
Okay.
And then you've heard of Coffee Meets Bagel.
No.
No, Coffee Meets Bagel. It's a dating app. This one's just called Bagels on the Media.
Oh wow!
That one got the best response. It's what it is.
That's what it is. Good. All right. Well, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Taylor Swift and James Cameron, Wonder Woman, and also a little bit about Ivanka Trump's fan mail. Girl.
Hey.
All right, we got a graphic incoming. Putting up 3, 2, 1. All right, video next. And next video. And power panel. And dropping it.
Welcome back to TYT Sports. Jason and Francis here. This is where everybody has to listen. Welcome to TYT Sports, everybody.
I am your host, Francis Maxwell.
Jason here. Welcome to TYT Sports. Turks and Jerks. TYT Sports.
Steph Curry signed with Under Armour.
Tom Brady's mad, by the way.
Do you hear me?
Bye on TYT Sports.
Actually, leave a link in the description box below instead of lying about leaving a link in the description box below. Editor, drop another picture of the UK bacon. And another. And in fact, throw in another one.
Let me see your belly.
Beast mode.
back, everyone. We're going to go over some tweets and then we have some breaking news. So, Brett, take it away.
All right, Mark Tosiello accurately says, I think Brett just dropped it by accident. The drop it that happened earlier, that was an accident. I didn't do anything. They were like, we're not going to wait for this idiot to drop it. We're just going to do it ourselves. Control Left named your yoga show Yoga and Murder with Friends.
Yoga and murder. Friends. I like it.
AJ Beamish says there is not a slippery slope on banning Nazis from OkCupid. Tim Joyce suggests a white supremacist dating site called OkStupid.
How did we overlook that?
That feels kind of obvious.
Really obvious, as well as the suggestion in studio for Hotsie or Nazi. Hotsie or Nazi.
All right,
that is it.
So let's get right into it. So over the break, we just got some breaking news. So I'm just getting this right now on the fly, but I want to talk to you all about it. Trump has just signed a directive banning transgender military recruits. This took place just this evening. Trump directed on Friday for the military to not move forward with an Obama-era plan that would have allowed transgender individuals to be recruited into the armed forces. Furthermore, he's also in this memorandum banning treatments and regimens for transgender individuals currently serving in the military. So no longer will they have the medical health care that they need. Also, he is directing the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to determine how to address transgender individuals currently serving based on military effectiveness and lethality, unitary cohesion, budgetary constraints, applicable law, and all factors that may be relevant. The White House official who briefed reporters on the memo on Friday evening declined to say whether transgender troops would be allowed to remain in the military under those policy guidelines. So there's still a lot of stuff as of yet to be determined, but that is what they are calling for. So this signaled that the administration was returning to the military's pre-2016 policy under which no transgender individuals were actually allowed to serve openly in the armed forces. That was something that we had been moving away from because Barack Obama signed a policy that was initially approved by the Defense Department that would allow trans individuals to openly serve in the military. So that is being scratched out. Now, when pressed, the White House offered no guidance at the time as to how the ban would be implemented. And so that leaves transgender service members, of which there are thousands, wondering about their future in the military. Obviously, this is a breaking story. We're just getting the details right now, but I want to get an initial reaction from both of you. We both were pretty disheartened when Alexa came running in and handed me the story. This is not the sort of breaking news you want to get.
So what day is it? It's Friday.
Today's Friday.
It's Friday. It's a news dump story. He just wanted to do it. He gets a signal, then he goes over to Camp David and he oversees handling the hurricane. And this goes with every other thing. We should have a whole segment dedicated to news dumps on Friday by Trump. Trump's dumps.
Hey, I'm for it.
Trumpy dumpy.
I'm for it.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yep.
So that's my initial reaction is this is BS as we all knew it was going to be.
Right.
There's no clear policy really other than from now on it's nothing.
Right.
What do you think, Ambria?
I mean, I agree. It's empty. It's empty, like most of the things that he promises to his base, and I think that's who this message is for. If you want to increase military effectiveness, how about we figure out why our ships are crashing into everything every 2 weeks? Like, let's address an issue that is actually an issue, right? Like, this isn't an issue.
Yeah. So one of the things that we covered on the show a couple days ago, maybe last week, was someone reported how much it would cost to replace these transgender military members, and it was way more than it would cost every year to give them the kind of medical treatment that they were, ostensibly going to be the beneficiaries of staying in. And so this seems like a BS stopgap to just say, okay, from now on, no more. Now, one thing you want to pay attention to in what Grace just said was the study they're going to do about the effectiveness and lethality of existing trans soldiers. And I want that report to be made as public as possible, because already in order to serve, period, you have to pass certain standards.
Right.
And if you pass those standards, you're allowed to participate as a soldier, as according to the research that I did for the stories when we covered them before. So I want those studies to be made as public as possible so they can eat their words when they discover, to no one's shock, that there is no, as other people have reported additionally, that there is no disparity in effectiveness. And you know an instance of a report of a super lethal trans soldier.
Yeah, so this is what I think is really important. When it comes to something that maybe you're unfamiliar about, you can always combat ignorance with education. And there's a really cool piece from the Air Force Times on a trans service member named Logan Ireland, who's been only very recently open about his trans status. So for years he was serving in the military, and his service members didn't have any idea. And then because of the law that the policy that Obama was trying to implement, he decided to come out. And basically there's this really just cool piece on him in the Air Force Times, which is as pretty unbiased when it comes to, they have no, I mean, I guess they do have a skin in the game, but they just came out to support this guy and other people like him who still didn't want their names in the publication. Logan was one of the few guys in the article or women that said that, yeah, you can publish my name, because everyone else like, oh, I've been serving covert for a number of years. I don't want to ruin that now because it looks like that could really fuck things up for me. So just educate yourself, read about these people who are serving to protect us so that we have our freedoms, it just makes me so upset. Educate yourself on this. I know it's so easy to point to things like it's a mental illness, like how people were saying about homosexuality just decades or so back, and I know that sexuality is not the same as sexual identity. I'm not equating the two, but I'm just saying that it's not the first time that information to make people feel othered, a population that you don't really know about, to be like, oh, the mental illness. It's so easy to pin that on someone. Educate yourself before you write that in the comment section below, please.
And it's going backwards for a political reason and not a logistical one.
Yeah.
That's what's so frustrating about it. It's signaling, it's whistling, it's another thing that Trump can say to his base. I'm with you, whatever you guys want. But you need to look no further than the response from everyone when he randomly in a tweet dropped the idea of this in the first place, which was every major branch of government really saying, it's not a problem, I don't know why he's making it one. Or doing the same cowardly approach, which is not really saying anything, but not agreeing with him either.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so
Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift. Let's get to this.
On to Taylor Swift. Okay. So Taylor Swift dropped her new era last night. She released her new single, Look What You Made Me Do, and announced her new album, Reputation. Along with all of this, she announced a new and unique marketing campaign to sell tickets to her fans. But some people are saying this is a little bit shady, a little slithery, if you will. She's partnering with Ticketmaster for a promotion known as Taylor Swift Tix. It's framed as a way for fans to beat the bots that scalpers use to mass purchase tickets and jack up resale prices, and requires you to register on her site to get access to tickets. From there, you pick your preferred city and then get to choose different opportunities to boost your place in line to obtain Taylor Swift concert tickets. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Taylor Swift Tix. Hazel, we're glad you're here. Thank you. My name's Grace, though. When you participate, you'll build your activity status and boost your opportunity to unlock ticket access. Boost activities will come in all shapes and sizes. Watch the latest music video, purchase the album. For the greatest boost, post photos and engage on social media. So other things you can do, all these things you can do to boost it. You can buy the album, but you can also buy it from different retailers. You can buy it from Walmart, you can buy it from Target, you can buy it from all these different places, from your local record store. That will all serve to boost your status. And then you can also share stuff about the album, share photos on one per platform per day. And also, if you like to stay my friend on Facebook, you better do it once and never again, because I'm aware, we all are aware that Taylor Swift is coming out with something new. So
if you want to be my friend, you do it once every few minutes.
All right, you can also shop for new Reputation merchandise. So let's take a look at it. This is a high boost. If you want to get a high boost, this is what you got to do. Mix and match the newest pieces of Reputation merchandise. Get that merch from the Taylor Swift store. See something you like? When you buy items marked with a Taylor Swift Tix badge, you'll get a boost. Scoop up as many pieces as you like and you'll get the boosts to match. No additional steps are required. Your purchase will automatically be applied. So this will tell you on the screen, you're going to be in a wait list, and it'll tell you if you are a priority or if you are sort of like towards the end of that. Also, what's worth noting is that participation does not guarantee access to purchase tickets or the ability to purchase tickets, and you don't just have to buy the album once. You can buy the album many times across different retailers and get a boost each time. So hey, this is not the first time that artists have been trying to do something to make sure that their fans are the ones that are buying the tickets to their show. Ed Sheeran has done something similar. Bruce Springsteen, even Hamilton have rolled out similar sort of things. Now, where Taylor Swift is unique in how she's rolling this out is in incorporating the more you buy, the higher you get. Now, I think,
but not really.
Yeah, but not really.
Right, as far as you know.
So I want to get a reaction from you all. I have some feelings about this, but I would like to hear how you're feeling about it first.
I'm just so happy that
You
there's
were really
more T-Swift music coming.
Okay.
At like 1:30 in the morning, I was listening to "Look What You Made Me Do," "Look What You," and I was so happy. I don't have any problem with the idea. Well, it's not that I don't have any problem. It's like this was going to happen anyway. Yeah. The gamifying of and rewarding people who have more money to spend with that spend more money on Taylor Swift with a priority in line. But the thing is, like, they're adding levels of priority, which essentially makes me think it's like buying airplane tickets. So they're becoming more like the airlines. And we know how much everybody loves the airlines. Like, that is what it feels like to me.
It's a promise of exclusivity that doesn't actually deliver on any kind of priority, which is problematic. And it's also inviting her fans to do promotions for her. And it's like, you have money for a promo team. Like, I don't need to share your album or your story unless I want to, not as a mechanism for purchasing tickets, also to come see you. I don't know, I feel like the remedy for this is patience. I will get your album when I can get it in a store, or when iTunes has it, or when I can go to the box office to pick up a ticket, because this is ridiculous. Like,
do you have any Taylor Swift albums?
No, I am
that's okay.
A black woman in 2017. I am not.
And I'm a white girl in 2015.
That is particular to Taylor Swift. I mean, like, there's some others that I'll mess with, but this one in particular, I'm not jumping through all these hoops to come see Taylor Swift. So
I think this rollout is just it's so not well thought out. I think because you can't just reward the richest kids. And I feel like this was a room, the people that have the most capital to just spend all this stuff. Because you're gonna have these people that will want to play the game. You're turning your fans into like this, it's like a game thing. It reminds me of that episode of Black Mirror where the actor from Get Out has to run on the stationary bike, and the more points he gets, someone in the comments will hopefully understand this because I sound like a crazy person, and the more points he gets, then he can audition for the show, and then he can.
Why is he always in these?
I don't know, there's a Rick and Morty episode where like there's different worlds within their world they create just to make power for the world above it.
Yeah.
Similar to that, it sounds. It does say in Taylor's defense, which I don't really care, but in Taylor's defense, you're allowed to post photos and engage on social media, which seem like non-monetary ways to participate and up your status in line.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's not the highest boost is in buying her merch, her like snake rings, and one of them goes for up to like $60.
If you want a cheap ticket,
at a flea market.
If you want a cheap ticket to a concert, buy the $9 tickets to the Katy Perry concerts, because that's what they're selling for right now.
Are they?
Wah, wah. So there was a title that said like, you can buy a Katy Perry ticket for less than a box of tampons.
The good tampons. Cotton. Like, get the cotton.
I think
no chlorine.
The argument here is that of course you want to weed out bots. I hate when you see all the, I hate when all these tickets get bought up and then you have to buy a ticket for some astronomical price that it wasn't being sold at before because they didn't have a system in place for bots. But don't put that onus onto your fans.
Right.
That's not like you solve it without getting your 15-year-olds involved and like spending their allowance on this. Like,
and time.
It's not their job. It's your responsibility as the person that they're going to see to make sure that they can have fair access and equal opportunity to go to your concert. Like, what happened in this boardroom that there's like people will love it. People will love spending money on me. Like, what happened? It was all rich people. Like, there wasn't one person that like worked a retail job that was like, yeah, real quick, like just spitballing here. People aren't gonna love to like shell out just cash on multiple albums.
Yeah. There's someone who worked retail who's like, what if I pay more for nothing? For no guaranteed reward. Doesn't that sound like a great thing for me?
What if I paid more for nothing?
Yeah.
That's great. Put that on the album. Reputation.
But you're right that it does not accomplish the stated goal. If you want to get rid of bots, I mean, ideally you would use like a CAPTCHA system. There are other things that do that. It is the disingenuous nature of this policy.
Exactly.
that is frustrating.
Yeah, and then they released a video, and it's very much like looking for a pat on the back. And he's like, "It's all about for you, oh
my god.
Okay, moving on.
I never want to stop talking about Taylor, though.
We have to sometimes, Brett. Sometimes we have to. So James Cameron spoke with The Guardian, and he said that he felt that Wonder Woman was a step back for women. Now, the director of Wonder Woman, Patty Jenkins, has spoken up, and she retorts, "Stay in your lane." This is what went down. This is the quote from James Cameron. "All the self-congratulatory back-patting Hollywood's been doing over Wonder Woman has been so misguided. She's an objectified icon, and it's just male Hollywood doing the same old thing. I'm not saying I didn't like the movie, but to me, it's a step backwards. Sarah Connor was not a beauty icon. She was strong, she was troubled, she was a terrible mother, and she earned the respect of the audience through pure grit. And to me, the benefit of characters like Sarah is so obvious. I mean, half the audience is female." Now, he is, of course, referring to the beloved character Sarah Connor from the Terminator franchise, one of my first girl crushes. She is badass. Let's not take anything away from Sarah Connor. Now, this is what Patty Jenkins said on Twitter. She responded to James Cameron's remarks. "James Cameron's inability to understand what Wonder Woman is or stands for to women all over the world is unsurprising. As though he is a great filmmaker, he is not a woman. Strong women are great. His praise of my film Monster and our portrayal of strong yet damaged woman was so appreciated, but if women have to always be hard, tough, and troubled to be strong, and we aren't free to be multidimensional or celebrate an icon of women everywhere because she is attractive and loving, then we haven't come very far, have we? I believe women can and should be everything, just like male lead characters should be. There is no right and wrong kind of powerful woman, and the massive female audience who made the film a hit it is can surely choose and judge their own icons of progress." So she's basically saying don't reduce Wonder Woman to her looks alone, and whether or not she should be taken seriously based off of that. Did you guys agree with what she said? Did you agree with what James Cameron said? Do you think he was sort of stepping out of his lane here?
It would be easier to take what James Cameron said seriously if it wasn't paraphrased as, "But what I did was good. Look at my thing." If he mentioned something else in cinema besides his own creation, essentially, then I would be able to look, with more impartiality about this. That's what kind of takes it down from me.
And it's also a little strange that he doesn't see that Sarah Connor is badass, and so is Wonder Woman. Their presentation outwardly and the struggles that they both went through and how it was portrayed, they're not mutually exclusive. You can have both badass women in this world. That pluralism is actually, I think, what makes both movies great, is that you can see all the wonderful representation of women.
Yeah.
Although shout out to him liking the movie Monster, because that was about Eileen Wuornos, and that was also an awesome movie. But what were your thoughts on this?
I think I stopped listening when he said step back for women. Like, women are not a monolith. There are many women, right? So when you say one movie sets women back, like, like policies are setting women back, not movies, like not Wonder Woman. So that was just ignorant. I think it's also ignorant to say that somehow Sarah Connor's grit allowed her access into appropriate womanhood, and somehow Wonder Woman's attractiveness somehow distances her from a type of appropriate womanhood or from being a heroine. And I think it's not having Wonder Woman, it's having Wonder Woman, Sarah Connor, having a wide range of representations of different kinds of women, because again, there are multiple women that women can look and relate to. I think that's...
Yeah, and it just seems like that's not what he was really grasping.
Right.
That we actually do need both to serve the best interest of furthering progress. We need every and all sorts of representations of women. And it seems like, honestly, like people are saying that Patty Jenkins clapped back because it's nice clickbait, but really she was just sort of saying, no, we need everything, right. And let's pass the mic here, James Cameron.
Yeah, and there's a whole segment of the movie where there's no men at all, which was my favorite part of the movie, right? Where it's just a whole group of women existing outside of the male gaze, outside of men in general. So it's like, did you watch the movie? So
the movie's not that good. It's just so much better than Suicide Squad.
Well, everything is.
What they did, well, that's the thing is, I don't know, there's something, if you're talking about what a big hit the movie Wonder Woman is, that's not necessarily, like Suicide Squad was a hit, it was terrible. So how much money it makes kind of takes away from it. I will say that the accomplishment I feel like they made in Wonder Woman was having like super duper charming and impossibly attractive Gal Gadot alongside super duper charming and impossibly attractive Chris Pine. I don't think Wonder Woman if you go back and watch that movie where the bad guy just kind of comes out of nowhere, you're gonna see like this triumphant feminism as much. But I do think that James Cameron is wrong in saying you can only essentially win with feminism by having like someone like Sarah Connor. I agree with your things there. I just don't think that Wonder Woman is as much of a feminist triumph as people would say.
I think the argument isn't about it being a feminist, at least my argument isn't about it being a feminist triumph. It's just, was it a good movie that had a woman as a lead?
Yeah.
Like, you know?
They should do more Wonder Woman type.
of those, right. And I think because there's only one, then we want to put it in this position where it's like, what are the feminist overtones? You know?
It gets totally
it's too much pressure, yeah.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on the Friday show. Anyone have anything that they want to plug? Any shout outs here?
Go read what James Cameron said about Neytiri in Playboy magazine.
All right, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Used to pay sometimes 4 times more than they used to pay.